Okay, that's 10 o'clock. So hello everyone, and welcome to another informative and in-depth tourism webinar from CBI. This time, we're looking at cycling and how to make the most of tourism on two wheels. Now, this webinar handily coincides with the launch of a new report on the cycling tourism sector from CBI, but we'll get to that a bit later on. For those who haven't joined us before, I'm James Turner from Black Spiral Design. I'm going to be your host today. I've been working in tourism development in the UK and worldwide for over 18 years now. And whilst I'm not the most fanatical cyclist myself, we all have to admit that the growth and opportunities in this sector are things we can't ignore. And after all, that's why you guys are all here today. And I think what's really interesting is even people who are not incredibly committed to cycling, even non-believers like myself, will actively choose to build cycling into our visitor experiences, let alone those massive amounts of people that specifically travel for the thrill, the challenge, or simply the experience of cycling somewhere new. It's definitely something that's important, and that's what we're going to be addressing today. So today's session really is answering that question, what are the opportunities in cycling tourism? Or, let's be honest, how can we best take advantage of them? How can we create memorable, inspiring cycling experiences that showcase our destination in a fantastic light, that are appealing to not just our customers, our potential customers, but also to tour operators and other distribution channels, and help us kind of promote them and help us get the word out there. Now, that might feel like a big ask to cover in an hour and a half or so, but we are fortunate to have a truly expert panel who are going to be joining us today to share some real insights into the subject, to give us some real kind of understanding of everything that's important. So, just before we begin, have a little bit of housekeeping. As usual, we're using GoToWebinar for our session today. GoToWebinar's got a lot of stuff to it, but I'm just going to go over a couple of the kind of sort of the key important bits for everybody that you need to know. Whether you're dialing in on a laptop or desktop or a mobile device, you will have some form of control panel that looks like what you're seeing on the screen there. There's only a few things you really need to worry about. If you're having any audio problems at all, getting your audio over the internet, you can choose to use the option to dial in via a phone call. If you choose that option, it will take you through the process of doing that. That call is always going to be either free or at a local rate call. So please do that if you have any problems with your audio. Please remember this is a webinar, so we can't see or hear you at all. If you want to interact with us, you're going to need to use the questions function. So the questions function over in the desktop version is in that drop down. On the mobile version, it's a very handy, nice big button. So please post questions to us. We're going to be putting those to our expert panel as we go through today. The more you ask, the more exciting questions we have to ask them, the more difficult questions we can ask them. If you have any issues at all during the webinar, please also post them in the questions section, because we have a dedicated support team led by the lovely Yorith, who's behind the scenes, who will help you out with any issues you may have with the webinar itself. Finally, we are going to have a few polls and interactions with you guys during the session today. Those will pop up on the screen as they happen, and please just follow the prompts and do what it says. I mean, it's basically clicking or choosing a few options. It's pretty straightforward. You'll see them as they arrive. So, with that all out of the way, finally, let me just say, sorry, just remind you again, we are recording this session, and we're going to be sending a copy of that to you afterwards by email, along with the slides and everything, so you don't really need to worry about taking huge amounts of notes or anything like that during the session today. Now, before we start, Arthur from CBI? Arthur, are you there?
Hi, good morning, James.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. Now, Arthur from CBI is just going to introduce himself and CBI and just give us a few words to get us started today. Over to you, Arthur.
Yes. So good morning, everyone, and to participants from Asia, probably already a good afternoon. Let me start by thanking all of you for joining us today. And I would like to send out a special welcome to the many CBI companies participating in this webinar. So CBI, at this moment, we support companies directly in tourism projects in Jordan, in Ethiopia, in Zambia, and in Uganda. And furthermore, I'd like to mention the tourism experts who collaborate with us in our market studies and in our sustainable development projects. And lastly, a very warm welcome to the private and public sector partners that are joining us today. For those of you that do not know me yet, so my name is Arthur Scheinert, and as a program manager, I'm responsible for CBI's market research in the tourism sector. And for people that are joining us for the very first time, let me shortly introduce who we are and what we do. So I have that on-screen Center for the Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries. CBI, we are a Dutch government organization, and we are funded by the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we consider it our mission to connect small and medium-sized enterprises like yourself to the European market and to create sustainable and inclusive economic growth. The way we do this is by strengthening the sustainability of SMEs. In developing countries, we encourage exports of value-added products to Europe and to the local region of SMEs. And we help with finding practical solutions to bottlenecks in the tourism value chain. And one such bottleneck is a lack of good market information. And that's where we come in. And that brings me also to the goal of today's session. So today we're going to look into an interesting and a hot topic, cycling tourism. The Adventure and Travel Trade Association, ATA, in this year's industry trend report put cycling and in particular e-bikes as their #1 adventure activity. And cycling is also a very sustainable tourism activity, which for sure adds to its attractiveness. It is also if we look at Europe, Europe is the world's largest target market for cycling tourism. Just we Europeans, we love cycling. And this is particularly so in my home country of the Netherlands. So in a nutshell, the biggest difference between the Netherlands and other parts of the world is how we view cycling. For us, cycling really is above all a mode of transport. So if you look on the street in the Netherlands, you will see that we do our grocery shopping by bike, we visit the family by bike, and many Dutch, including our Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, go to work each day by bike. So this preference for using the bicycle is also continued in our holidays. And you will see later today that the Netherlands is the 3rd most potential market in Europe. And what the other most potential markets are, you will see later on in today's presentation. This webinar will focus, as James said, on the opportunities the cycling tourism offers you, how to take these opportunities and how to build a successful product. And together with the expert panel who will be introduced to you shortly, we'll explore this growth market. So why do we do this? The main reason is transfer of knowledge. So at CBI, we do a lot of research. We have many experts collaborating with us in the field who own tour operators or who coach tourism companies on a daily basis. And with these type of webinars, we ask them to share their best tips and practical insights with you. And we hope that today's webinar will give you new ideas, inspiration, and ultimately that it will help you improve your product and sales to Europe. That's it for me. I wish you all a very good session. Back to you, James.
Thank you, Arthur. Great intro. Okay, brilliant. So that's why we're here today. I would just like to pause for a moment to just actually find out why you guys are all here today. I'm just about to launch a poll, which is going to be up on screen. So this is going to pop up on your screens in a moment. What we're just interested at the moment is to understand what your current interest is in cycling tourism. You know, where are you in the kind of the development of a cycling tourism product, and why have you kind of come to this webinar today? So this poll is going to pop up. It's a multiple choice poll. You can choose as many as apply. You can choose all of them if you wish, but it's entirely up to you. Are you at the stage where you are simply just planning to develop a cycling product? You haven't started yet, you're thinking about it. Are you in the middle of developing something and you're looking for tips and ideas today? Have you perhaps already developed something and you're looking for ideas and thoughts about how to find distribution partners to let people know about your product? Are you looking for marketing advice or just tips on how to promote it yourselves? Or are you looking for ways that you can improve something that you're already selling? Okay, I'm going to just launch that poll now, which should pop up on screen. I think you guys should all see it. Please vote. This is a multiple choice, so you can choose where or any and all that apply to you. So are you just thinking about developing something at the moment? Are you in the middle of the process and you need advice and guidance on that? Are you looking for ideas on how to find distribution partners, or tips on promotion, or perhaps just general advice on how you can improve something you already sell? Okay, got a lot coming in. Nearly half of you have voted. Come on, everyone, you can all do this. It's only clicking a few buttons. Okay, I'm going to give you another couple of seconds, and okay, I'm going to close it now. Okay, so that's the results. Interesting. Large proportion of you are still in the planning phase, but a quite good spread across the board there. Now, thank you, everyone. That's extremely useful. I'm not going to spend a lot of time looking at that right now, but it's something we're certainly going to keep in mind as we go through this session. And it's also how we're going to help select the kind of questions we're going to put to our panel later on. So thank you again for that. Now, speaking of our panel, I think we should meet them. Could I ask all our panelists to magically appear? Turn on your webcams so everyone can see you. We have two. Do we have three? Yes, we have three. Morning, everybody. Right. So this is our expert panel today. Now, first of all, I'd like to introduce Alison Burgh from Acorn Tourism. She actually was one of the co-authors of the CBI Cycling Tourism report that we're going to be looking at later on. Welcome, Alison. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and introducing yourself to our lovely audience?
Good morning, James. Good morning, everybody. Very good to be here with you. As James said, my name is Alison Burgh. I've been one of CBI's tourism experts for about the last 10 years, and I'm also a director of Acorn Tourism Consulting. And we've been writing the market information reports for CBI for the last 3 or 4 years, and we will be carrying on writing them over the next 3 or 4 years. So we've done the cycling tourism report that we're looking at today, and yeah, very much looking forward to hearing Lizzie and Ayman's experiences as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Alison. Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm also really pleased to introduce Lizzie Cottier, who is the head of product development at specialist cycling tour operator Saddle Skedaddle. That is quite hard to say in one word, but anyway, welcome, Lizzie. Would you mind just introducing yourself to everybody?
Yeah, morning, James. Hi, everyone. Yes, so I'm Lizzie. I've been at Skedaddle for 17 years now. So my current role is head of product. We develop new holidays at Skedaddle, new cycling holidays, and look after all our existing ones as well. There you go. There's a little introduction. I think there's more coming later.
Well, I'd hope so. I mean, that's what everyone's here to, to find out. So, but thank you anyway. And I'm also really pleased to welcome Ayman Alkareem, who is the general manager of Experience Jordan, who's actually integral in creating the Jordan Bike Trail. Welcome, Ayman. Very pleased to see you today. Could you just introduce yourself to everybody?
Happily. How are you, everyone? I'm Ayman. I run a company called Experience Jordan Adventures. I'm happy to be here today, actually, to share some of our experience in developing the Jordan Bike Trail and developing the cycling products in general as a tour company. This is also a brief introduction. I am competing with Lizzie's brief.
Brief introductions are fine. Now, I'm going to start by asking you all a really difficult question, which I haven't prepped any of you for in advance. Okay, very quickly, in 30 seconds or less each of you, and I'll come to you in turn, what would you say is the most important factor in a successful cycling tourism product? Alison, what would you say for you? What's the most important factor in making a success of cycling tourism?
I think it's really understanding that mix between what you can offer as a destination and understanding the market. So you need to know what your destination can offer in terms of cycling tourism experiences, yeah, and know which markets you want to which markets you want to target.
Fair enough, very concise. Research, knowing your audience, knowing what you have to offer, being in full possession of the facts, shall we say. Very good. Lizzie, I'm going to come to you. What would you say is the most important factor?
Well, that was a great answer from Alison. I think given my role, I'm going to have to say product. So right, having some really strong routes, having everything in place, well researched, lots of backup options, and yeah, as a product that delivers the customer experience that your customers are looking for.
Okay, good stuff. And Ayman, I know this is going to get increasingly difficult, but please, what would you say? What would you say is the most important success factor in cycling tourism?
I think creating a story about your product in general. You need to theme your product. That would be the key. I think many people can create a cycling tour nowadays, but if you know how to combine all the aspects, the local community, the product as a trail, and the story behind the trail as well, would make a successful product.
Fantastic. Good work, everybody. I do apologise for putting you all on the spot there, but why not? It's good fun. Now, okay, so cycling is potentially, as we've just seen, a very large and kind of diverse kind of product segment. You know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot we're going to need to cover. So to get things rolling, Alison, I'm going to come to you first of all today. Let me just pass you the screen. Could you just give us a starting point? Give us some ideas about the scope of this market and who we're talking about, the kind of cyclists that we're kind of looking at today. Oh, I think you might be on mute, Alison.
There we go. That's a bit better.
Yeah.
Thanks, James. Yes, just really to start for a few minutes to look at the different type of markets that there are in cycling, because I think, you know, the key point is not all cycling tourists are the same. And as we've just discussed, you know, you've got to know those different types of markets, and you've got to know how they fit with the product that you have got in your destination, and work out which your business is best suited to work with, what type of tourism cyclists you can focus on. So I'm just doing a quick run through the different types of sort of market segments that you might find when you're exploring this market. And I think, you know, 66% of you said that you're thinking about developing a tourism product. So it's really good to understand, you know, these different market segments. Tour cycling is probably the largest market. It's made up of primarily leisure cyclists that want to see different sights and attractions, just like most other tourists, but they want to use bikes to move from one place to another. So when you're looking at developing a tour, you're wanting to think about other experiences that you can build in to your cycling tour, whether it's cultural visits, food and wine, seeing wildlife, or just ending up on the beach to relax. As part of that segment, there's also the specific market around family holidays and family cycling tours. I mean, you are looking there at children that may be up to about the age of 14 years old, and bearing in mind that children get bored, they get tired more easily, and you're probably looking at shorter tours, probably about 1 to 3 days, with some interesting stops along the way. You would need to be able to provide family-friendly accommodation. And although this is really a growing segment and has become much more popular since COVID, it is quite a small market, a niche market in terms of long-haul destinations for tourists from Europe. Also, if you're looking at cycling tours in cities, I mean, this is an area where people are not coming specifically for cycling, but they may be in a city and they're wanting to travel around and get from one site to the next. And we'll be hiring bikes for maybe 1 hour to a full day, and may well also book a city tour. But as I say, it's not the prime reason for cycling. It's using a different mode of transport that's more sustainable and helps get around busy cities. Looking at some of the more specialist markets, road cycling is very popular, particularly amongst men between the ages of about 18 and 49, so much the under 50s, looking for really challenging exercise that they can enjoy in a very beautiful natural environment. People want to go at high speed, it's a real priority. They want good roads, flat roads with minimal traffic where they can really cycle fast. How far they go depends very much on level of fitness and experience, but it could be anything between 15 kilometers a day up to about 200. And these cyclists have their specialist bikes. They're very light. They want to travel with very little luggage. So they might well choose services such as a pickup service to take their luggage from place to place. If your destination's got good roads and good tracks and trails, it might also be suitable for an event such as a triathlon or various types of charity events that are increasingly popular. Most events take place on a specific date, and they may be just one day, possibly 2 days. So they probably won't involve an overnight stay, but they can attract groups of both cyclists and non-cyclists as part of a much longer trip. Another specialist area is mountain biking. You're looking at a similar age group, the under 50s, who are looking for a particularly physically challenging holiday out in beautiful landscapes. They're looking for dirt roads, tracks in mountains and forests, interesting landscapes, and places where they can really challenge themselves. They are quite likely to organise their own trips, particularly in countries they're familiar with, but if they're travelling long haul, they may well be looking for organised tours. And they'll be going out and doing these bike trails for parts of the day. They may not necessarily do it all day, so there's opportunities to look for other types of activities to interest them as well. So a mix between, in the area between road biking and mountain biking, there's a growing interest in what's known as gravel biking. And these are bikes, these are cyclists that use gravel bikes, which have both drop-down handlebars and wide tyres. So they're very suitable for both on-road and off-road tracks with narrow trails through forests, paths, and of course on gravel. And these cyclists are often interested in touring. And these bikes are lightweight. They've got handlebars that are designed for carrying light backpacks as well. And these types of bikes are often popular with long distance cyclists. And these types of tours can be anything from a week up to 15 days or more, and can be completed as a really challenging group expedition, or they might be part of a charity ride. So one of the fastest growing trends that it's worth knowing about is electric biking. It's becoming increasingly popular, and these bikes are used quite often by less experienced cyclists, or they might be used by adventurous older cyclists who are not as fit as they used to be, but still want to have that challenging cycle. It's a growing trend and one that's definitely worth following. So just to recap briefly, if you're thinking about planning a tour, first of all, really understand the different types of cyclists there might be. Think about what your destination has to offer, what cycling trails and tours and itineraries you could create, and then look at which of these different segments of the cycling market you can best service through your business. Thanks, James. Back to you.
Good stuff. Thank you, Alison. That's brilliant. Great introduction. I'm sure we'll come back to you with some questions later on. Can I just remind everyone, please do ask questions into the questions tab. We're going to put those to our panelists shortly. So please do ask. The more you ask, the more we have really exciting things to put them on the spot with. Anyway, next we're going to hear from Lizzie on what Skedaddle are looking for in cycling products and how they work with operators and providers in other countries. But before we do, I'd just like to pose a kind of a relevant question to you all. Just share my screen. We're going to pop another poll up for you. What we would like to know this time, this is a single choice answer. We just like to know for those of you who do currently have cycling products that you promote and sell, what's the main route you use to promote them? Do you promote them directly, perhaps sell them directly through your own website? Is that your key route? Do you work with a specialist cycling tour operator, perhaps? Do you work with a general tour operator? Or is your main route through an OTA, online travel agents, so the big ones, kind of like, Viator and all of those kind of guys? Or is it something else that we haven't covered here? What one is your main route? I'm just going to pop that poll up right now. And we'd just like to know from you guys where your main promotional channel is, which is the one that's the most important to you, just to give us a feel for how you guys all operate. Now, obviously, if you haven't got any cycling tours at the moment, you don't have to vote in this. I'll leave that one up to you. Okay, so all right, that's quite interesting. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple more seconds just to vote on that one. Very large proportion of people going directly. Interesting. Okay, just a couple of seconds. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now. Let's pop the results up on screen. Thank you everyone who voted. So as you can see there, we've got the largest proportion is for you guys is that you promote and sell your tours directly, and secondly, it's using specialist tour operators. Now, Lizzie, what do you think of those results? Does that surprise you? Would that be the sort of thing you'd expect to see?
I think it's really interesting. I think there's been a lot of change in the market over the last couple of years, and I can imagine there are a lot of people selling directly as well. I think what's interesting is finding out what works for you and whether it's one particular avenue or whether it's a mix.
I admit this was a fairly blunt instrument of a poll question, which, you know, we can't ask the nuances, but yes, I completely take your point. At the end of the day, it probably is a mix and a blend of stuff for people, but
I think there's certainly pros and cons to doing it direct yourself, in that we do that ourselves. So we see it from both sides.
Okay, well look, let me put this to you. Help us answer this kind of promotional sales marketing part of this whole cycling tourism equation. You know, what should we be doing to promote our products? And how, oh, excuse me, send that to you. And, you know, how can we better do that? How can we better work with specialist tour operators like Skedaddle?
Thanks, that was a great handover. I'm going to, I'll start with a brief background on who we are, and then we'll get into a little bit of that as well too. So I'm Lizzie, work at Saddle Skedaddle. So we're a tour operator, we're a cycling specialist. So all of the holidays we run cycling. We ran our first trips in Chile 27 years ago. And since then, we've worked back towards home, expanding the range to include the UK, Europe, as well as long-haul destinations in Latin America, Asia, and Africa. So we currently have 200 holidays worldwide, and we segment our cycling. So a little bit like how Alison was describing. Our road, I'm just going to put a few bullet points up so you can follow where I am. There we go. So our road and mountain biking categories, they would typically include higher grade trips with some specialist itineraries, more technical riding, as well as some gentle introductory level itineraries too. We also have the leisure and family holidays, and they're mainly non-technical riding, mostly on hybrid bikes, obviously with children's sized bikes and where appropriate kind of tag-alongs and trailers, child seats. And we also have our adventure cycling range. So it's here that we showcase a lot of our long haul trips. So these are our destination driven holidays, with cycling being the kind of non-technical side of the riding. And what we're trying to do really is we believe that by bike is the best way to see and enjoy a country. So these are our adventures range. Across our whole range of holidays, we have both guided and self-guided trips. So the main aim of these is making sure we're offering the right level of support for the customers on each holiday. That might depend on the route or language barriers, where they're going, what are the kind of navigation options. So in the UK and Europe, that's usually a mix between both guided and self-guided holidays, especially for our kind of leisure and family range, where we sell a lot more of the self-guided trips. But in general, our long haul and our higher grade trips, so our more technical riding, they're all guided holidays. So moving on a little bit about our market. So we're based in the UK, and the majority of our cyclists are from the UK, with probably about 20%, but it's a growing proportion, that come from elsewhere. So mostly the US, Canada, Australia make up that 20%. So most of our travellers are aged probably around 50 to 70 years, and the majority of our holidays are 5 to 14 days. So week-long holidays in the kind of UK and Europe, mostly overseas. We're talking kind of 2-week trips, and we have what we call our iconic journeys, which are more like 2 to 3 week trips, which might span the width of or length of a country, things like the Land's End John O'Groats in the UK, or a top to bottom of Italy. As cycling specialists, our itineraries include cycling on most days, so almost every day you'll be cycling. We're continuing to see a growth in cycling at home in the UK, so bike sales are very good, especially over the last couple of years. And there are lots of people cycling for leisure, for commuting to work. There's also a good growth in the active travel market, so a lot of good news for cycling holidays. And certainly over my 17 years at Skedaddle, I've seen a huge growth, becoming much more popular and much more widespread. So going from, you really had to be kind of a hardcore cyclist back then to be going on a cycling holiday, it's much more broad and general now. We're seeing a lot of people taking their first cycling holidays. In terms of the cycling categories, leisure and road are certainly our biggest areas, but we're also seeing a big increase in growth of gravel riding, in e-bike, as Alison was mentioning, and also looking at the routes, a real interest in traffic free. So not just the kind of leisure and family segment, who would traditionally be looking for kind of traffic free cycle paths. I think influenced a little by the growth in gravel, there's a move for all types of cyclists towards traffic free as a way to explore more natural environments. So a little bit about our holidays and partners. I'll give you a few key points. Safety always goes without saying. It always needs to be there at number one. So that's always key for us. But finding a partner who shares our values is also really critical. Our partners are really important to us. They're the face of Skedaddle, and they're the biggest part of our customers' experience. So when we're looking for a partner, we're looking for someone who has the same approach as us, and a same approach to a few things. So it's not just about a passion for cycling, it's about an approach to customer service and developing great product. These two go hand in hand, really. So we recognise that our value as being a tour operator is in providing that organised package to our customers. They're looking for something that's fully organised, hassle-free for them. And together with a partner, we need to plan the best itinerary, finding the best routes, but it's also about how we manage the delivery of that as well. So ensuring everything goes smoothly, having the logistics sorted out so everyone has a great time. Our customers don't have the time that independent travellers do for lots of research or for trial and error. They're paying for an organised trip with us. So that trust to provide them with an off the beaten track experience without any hassle to them is what they're really looking for. They want to get up, have a delicious breakfast and enjoy their day. They don't want to be figuring out routes or problem solving. And that's where our local partners are really key. It's all that knowledge that goes into creating a brilliant itinerary, anticipating, sorting out problems before the customers even know about them. So customers also trust us to ensure their holiday is responsible, and that's to the destination, to the community and the environment, and to be making the right decisions. So that might be choosing one hotel over another, pricing right to ensure everyone gets paid fairly, It might be measuring the carbon impact, for example. In general, it's really just continuing to push and keep improving. It's not always that our customers ask us about this, but when we do talk to them, they're really feeling it's that we're trusting you to do that. We're booking with you because you're the experts and that you know what it is to make a tour responsible. So we have really loyal customers as well. They keep coming back, and that means that the quality and the consistency of the experience is really key, as well as making sure it's fun too. So talking a little bit about the operations side, because that's so key in delivering the experience. So I'd add a few things that we consider when we're setting up a holiday. So starting with the essentials, we need local partners to guarantee operating standards, adhere to the local law, the best practice guidelines. And we're also guaranteeing the health and safety elements. Might mean training, staff training, first aid training and certificates. We risk assess every holiday. So we're really looking at making sure this is a really safe, smooth, easy experience for the customers. The bikes are obviously a really important element of a cycling holiday. So that's the quality, the servicing and consistency. We have different bikes on different holidays. They might suit the kind of cycling, what's available, but what's key is providing the right bike for the routes so that it's suitable for the terrain, the distances people will be riding. It's about ensuring it's a good enough quality bike for a safe and comfortable experience, and that might mean different things in different places. On group trips in particular, the consistency in a fleet is really key. So all customers have the same spec bike. They're all going to turn up at the beginning of the trip, and there's nothing worse than kind of handing out bikes and customers comparing them. So having a fleet that is consistent is really handy. All of our bikes are given a good service before every trip. We'll do a daily M check as well on a trip before starting the day's riding. Really, we want to be kind of starting the trip, making sure the bikes are safe, but all niggles are ironed out, so gears are shifting cleanly and the customers can enjoy that riding right from the start. An interesting one, I think, is balancing that consistency. I've talked a lot about consistency, but balancing that with a local experience. So we want to make sure we meet a level of quality, but we don't want everything to be the same. So lunches are a good example of that probably. We want a healthy mix of fruit, salad, protein, carbohydrates, making sure people have fuel for their ride. But that could be different every day. So that might just be whatever fruit is in season in the local market, might be the local bread or the rice dish from the village you're traveling through. And that might vary as you travel through different regions. And same with the setting. Lunch could be in a favourite cafe. It could be a picnic with a great view, or it could be lunch in someone's home another day. It's the consistency that we're bringing in is making sure people are fed and at the right time of day, but it should be local, it should be fun, varied. All of that should be part of the experience. There you go. So another really key one for us is having the planned itinerary. And this is what we work on in product a lot of the time. So the trip notes that we provide to customers, so the itinerary and the trip information, that forms a legal contract between us as a tour operator and the customer. So when we're planning an itinerary with a local partner, we need to be confident that we can deliver it. And we take bookings up to a year in advance. So we might be planning a trip kind of 18 months to 2 years in advance, with bookings a year at like 12 months. So that accurate information is really important. And that might be the type of bike they're going to get on the trip, accurate distances that they'll be riding, the sites mentioned in the itinerary. We need to be confident that's the experience we'll be delivering. And if anything changes, because we do know things change, but if anything does change, we need to know so that we can manage that with the customer. Additional elements that help us deliver our holidays could be having GPX files, for example. They give us accurate distances and profiles. So people, for example, know how hilly it is. And for some, that might mean knowing that there aren't too many hills. And for others, that might mean they're disappointed if there aren't enough hills. So having that accurate information that we can provide just helps manage the customer expectations right from the start. They know what they're looking for. So if we can provide that accurate information, we can make sure that they're right for the trip. They can make that decision early on. Other things is having good kits, so spare parts, tools for fixing mechanical problems on the roads. For example, our kits, we often take inner tubes, so you're not fiddling about on the road with puncture repair kits. You've got inner tubes that you're fitting straight into the bike so the customers can keep cycling. We also would have spare bikes in the vehicles. So if there is a mechanical, we can fit customers onto another bike so they don't miss riding while their bike's being fixed. So going on from that, our support vehicles are key as well. So people can pop in for a ride if they're tired, but also the support vehicles carry day bags, water, extra clothing layers, so the cyclists don't have to carry it with them when they're cycling. And last but not least, we don't underestimate the need for really good experienced guides, especially who can manage a group when the unexpected happens. So that's really key. In terms of reaching the market, points here, finding customers and selling holidays. So as a tour operator, that's our responsibility. That's what we bring to the partnership. But to do that most effectively, partner content makes a huge difference to us. So we're trying to provide that inspiration for customers, make that holiday stand out and bring it to life. And sharing that inspiration is really key. We aim to do this through sharing a range of content. So that might be photos, videos, blogs, might be interview with the guide or the person who set up the trip. And we're using our newsletters, our social media channels, our website, as well as training our sales team so they can be sharing those gems with the customers. They might be talking to some of our existing customers, trying to find the next holiday for them. So the more kind of information and little gems that we can give them to provide that inspiration is really key. I think storytelling seems to be a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but it's something that really resonates with us. So it provides that hook and the inspiration to travellers. It's the thing that makes a particular destination or holiday different and special. So it's not just about the route that you cycle on, it's about why it was created and what are the communities, who are the people that you're going to meet along the way, where are you traveling through. It might mean, it might be, why do we turn left at a certain junction where everybody else is turning right? So what are those little stories and those little bits of inspiration for people? And it's in these stories that let the travellers know what the holiday will feel like before they book it. And it's from that they're going to know if it's right for them, and it's going to make them book this holiday rather than any other holiday in our range or an itinerary with someone else or even doing it themselves. So it's what do we bring to it that makes it really special. I very much suspect you're going to get some ideas in Ayman's presentation a bit later too. Okay, that's probably a good point for me to hand over, I think. Maybe take some questions. Yeah, James.
Well, thank you, Lizzie. Fantastic. Actually, I have a couple of questions just to clarify a couple of bits. When you're working, you talked a lot about partners and people you work with in other countries. You talked about the criteria and the way that you select what you're looking for. What's the physical process of how you select partners? Do they apply to you? Do you go out and source them? You know, if people wanted to get involved with Skedaddle, how could they?
There's probably a few different ways, and I can think about many different ways over the years.
Right.
We find networking events really useful, especially with like-minded organisations. So we're a member of ATTA, the Adventure Travel Association. We've found a lot of very like-minded partners through going to events at ATTA. That kind of meeting, having a chat. Do we feel the same way about customer experience? Do we have the same approach to cycling? That kind of desire for exploring, getting off the beaten track. Often just having a chat and talking to partners, those shared values are what's really important. For us, when we're looking at a partnership, we're wanting to have a long-term relationship with a local tour operator, and so getting that right from the start is really important. There's so much, you know, you can learn about bikes and you can learn about the logistics, but it's having that same kind of idea about how you're going to work with customers, and is it something fun that you enjoy and you want to share with people. I think it's having that enthusiasm that's really important.
Okay. So basically, you know, it's networking. It's kind of, you know, forging that introduction, finding those people that way. Okay.
Absolutely.
I've just had a question just pop up. Do you actually have partners in Uganda already? I suspect somebody may be looking and interested.
We don't. So yeah, if there's somebody from Uganda there, I can pass on my details and absolutely get in touch.
Good stuff. All right. And sorry, can I ask just one more? This is a blindingly obvious question, but just to clarify, you were talking about the kinds of bikes and the kind of the kit and all the things like that. That's provided by your local partners. All the bikes, everything's provided by them. You're basically the conduit that's getting business to them. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. And that can always be a discussion as we set up. As I said, you know, we're looking for the right partner with the right kind of attitude and approach. Some of the logistics we can help work out, but in general, our customers, we always give them the option whether they want to bring their own bikes or hire locally. Sure. So having those local fleets, even if you don't own your own fleet, having access to a local fleet is really key, because that's one of the kind of the main logistics that we offer customers, is that we'll handle is the getting a bike to a destination. Some like to take their bikes on a flight, and others definitely don't. So
right, okay, but for the people who do, you offer the option to, you know, to hire the bikes when they're there, depending on the needs they've got and the things like that. So good. Yeah. Hopefully that answered one of Andrea's many questions, because she asked several, but hopefully that's asked one of them. Great. And also we have the contact from the person in Uganda as well, so we'll pass that one along as well. So good.
Thank you.
Cool. The other thing I did want actually specifically wanted to ask you was, can you just give us an example of a local operator that has been successful in working with Skedaddle, just so we can kind of get a feel of what it actually looks like on the ground, just very quickly?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. I think we've got our best example coming up. So we work with Experience Jordan with Ayman. So we met, I think, at an ATTA conference.
Okay.
And they are fantastic. Brilliant partners to work with, and I'm sure you'll get a sense of that as you listen to Ayman's presentation. Okay,
good stuff. Right, Andrea, I'm very sorry. Andrea is a she, so I do apologise for that. Andrea, calling you a man, I do apologise. Thank you. Right, Ayman, Alison, could I ask you to join us, just because we've got a couple of other questions that I think we can't let Lizzie have all of them. There we go. Okay, right, so what have we got? Right, we do have some questions about e-bikes. Do you want to deal with e-bikes now, or would it make more sense to wait till after we've talked about kind of actually putting a trail together? What do you
Probably
guys
makes
think?
more sense to look at it once we've looked at putting a trail together.
All right, let's do that.
Ayman
Let's do that. Okay.
May have some comments on that as well.
Okay. You both Lizzie and Alison, you've both talked about various market segments and groups and stuff. But for someone who's planning a trip at the minute, are there any particular ones of those segments that people should be investigating as a kind of a starting point? The ones that kind of have the most kind of return on them, the ones that have the most growth prospects, perhaps? Or either of you guys suggest, or Ayman, if you want to.
I mean, I can go first if you like. I would say the non-technical riding is probably if you've not got experience of a particular kind of cycling, I would say non-technical would absolutely be your kind of first step. It can get very specialist as you go into higher grade mountain biking, gravel,
Sure.
and road riding. So looking at the kind of leisure, that sort of idea of seeing a country by bike, so it's your vehicle for tourism rather than this specialist cycling.
And obviously the less specialist you are, I guess the easier it is to kind of source all of the kit and the equipment and the kind of bikes that are going to be. Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Alison, have you got any thoughts you want to add to that?
I'd really just second that. I mean, from a market research perspective, what we see is that tour cycling tours are, leisure tours are the biggest section of the market. And I think it's worth remembering that cycle tourism is part of that bigger adventure tourism segment that everyone's very familiar with. And those cyclists that are doing a more leisure tour are looking for those different types of activities that you'd put together as part of an adventure tourism. And as Liz has already said, around community tourism, I think we'll hear a lot more about that from Ayman as well. But looking at meeting the local population, the people that are around you, using those bikes to get from A to B, but having that broader experience.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've just had another follow-up question actually from Ranil that's come in about this idea of this kind of sort of leisure, family, cultural kind of low specialism of cycling. What's the kind of the average daily distance that these sorts of groups are looking for? What's not frightening but challenging enough to be exciting?
We probably span the whole spectrum of Alison's
right.
What she popped in her presentation. So we'd be looking probably for about 20 miles minimum on a day.
Right.
And then depending on the kind of cycling, that can be up to 150k. But normally I would say kind of 25 to 45 miles a day for us.
Okay. And that's doable for the kind of the non-specialist market, I guess, the kind of the entry level kind of cycling market.
I would say, I probably should qualify that's probably for us as a cycling specialist. So we don't, and when we have our long haul trips, they tend not to be our absolute beginner cyclists. They're people who've been on a cycling holiday before and are used to touring. So if you get, if it's a beginner market, you probably want to be looking at the shorter side of that. That's sort of maybe 15 to 25 miles a day. But it absolutely depends on the terrain and the climate, how hot it is,
Of course, yes. Local factors play a big part in this,
They do.
Okay, we've had another question come in. Do you ask for any, or would you suggest, and actually, Ayman, this could apply to you guys as well, anyone who's operating a guided cycling package, do you ask what sort of qualifications or any kind of sort of professional experience are you looking for in the people who are guiding it? Obviously, Lizzie, you talked about health, first aid, basic safety, that kind of stuff, but are you looking for anything else? Is there any other criteria that people should be really looking for in the people who are going to be guiding these experiences?
Of course. If I may answer this question, I think from a local tour operator perspective, of course, they need the fitness experience or the fitness.
It's not going to be much of a tour if they don't.
Yeah, that's very important, but that can be built over time as well, especially for leisure touring and leisure cycling tours. We're not talking about covering very long distances, but from our experience in Jordan, the terrains, the elevation, gain and loss can vary a lot within one day. You can climb up 1,600 meters within one day. So the fitness level is very important for us, especially if we're not operating e-biking tours. We need to focus on that. The other thing that is really important is the group management skills. I would say for us, it could even come like directly as second after the fitness level for many reasons, especially for countries that are still developing their cycling culture in general. You go through villages, you go through different communities, you pass by wild dogs and school kids and things like that. Of course, like people are getting used to more and more riders on the trail, but still they need the guides need to be able to facilitate, not just to lead. They need to facilitate the communication, the interaction between the travelers to help basically the locals and the travelers together understand basically the local the culture and how to deal with any situation, and how to basically also indulge in the experience and enjoy basically the experience that they're going through.
Yeah,
I would say
all valid points.
Yeah,
and again, I guess a lot of that will depend, obviously, the type of cyclist, the kind of group, because that obviously then brings different needs. If you've got people with children or people who are extremely, you know, they're going for the full-on downhill on the gravel, full adrenaline version, they're going to need different skill sets and stuff like that as well. I mean, are there actually any professional qualifications that you guys look for at all?
I think it depends on the country, but for us in Jordan, the guides need to be licensed from the Ministry of Tourism. So there's a certain regulation that we need to follow. However, we don't really have many licensed guides who are cyclists. So sometimes we need to hire licensed guides to accompany the group, especially when they go to sites visits. And then we would hire a cyclist, professional cyclist, to accompany the group as a lead cycling guide. So we would have to with most of our groups. As a specialized, I would say, adventure company, we've been investing in this in the past few years. So we've been training many licensed guides to be basically the lead cycling guides on our trips. So this way, we would have one licensed guide on every tour. Of course, it's much more efficient cost-wise, and it also helps us grow basically our pool of adventure guides in general.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to leave it here because we kind of need to get on with the session. We will have more questions later, but Ayman, I'm actually going to ask you one very specific question that someone's asked. Which months should we avoid cycling trips, and what are the best times of year for cycling tours in Jordan?
That's a good question, actually. I think that there was maybe a misconception about the months of travel to Jordan in the past 20 years. I would say we've been promoting to Jordan as a spring and fall destination. You come within those two seasons. But honestly, it depends on the product, depends on the trails you're planning to include.
Yeah.
I would say, honestly, you can come to Jordan and travel and do cycling tours anytime during the year, to be honest. It depends what you're planning to do. You can start very in the morning, include some site visits during the day, then carry on like toward the end of the day. So honestly, I would say throughout the whole year. Of course, the best seasons could be our basically for spring and fall, that goes from March all the way, I would say, to early June even. Then I would start again in September all the way to December. Those are
but obviously, but as you say, it depends very much on the kind of thing people are doing. If you've got lots of long, massive descents that are going to take all day, that's much harder in the summer months, let's say.
Exactly, and it all goes down to communication. If you communicate the exact plan, the exact itinerary, everyone is happy.
Okay, Brilliant. Right, sorry guys, we are going to have to pause it there because Ayman needs to talk extensively about Jordan and the experience of actually developing the product. Just before we do, Lizzie, by the way, everybody's asking for your contact details, so you are proving very popular. Just good to know. Right, now, shortly, Ayman is going to talk about the Jordan Bike Trail and what he's doing. Just before that, I would like to just hear from you guys again, just a very specific question, actually. We're going to put another poll up, which I'm waiting to load. Okay, this time, what we'd like to know from those of you who are in the middle of developing a product or trying to sell your cycling experience, things like that, which of these following things do you see as the biggest barriers or the difficulties that you have? Is it developing the product itself? Is it purchasing and maintaining the right equipment? Is it recruiting the right people and training them in the right ways and getting the right skills and experience? Is it finding the sales channels and the ways to actually market and promote your product? Or is it perhaps, do you find it difficult to cope with competition from either other businesses or other destinations? Now, this one again is multiple choice. Please, you can select all of them if you wish. Please only choose your top two. Which ones do you feel of these? Do you feel are the biggest difficulties you see in creating and selling cycling experiences? Just give us a flavour of where you see the barriers. Now, to be very useful in the future, hopefully for some of the work CBI is going to do, but also really interesting for us to know, where you guys are finding it difficult. So is that developing the products itself, whether that's putting together the tour, creating the right trails, finding the places to do it, purchasing and maintaining the equipment? We've had a lot of questions about e-bikes and where you get them from, which we'll probably delve into later on. Recruitment, training of people, finding sales channels, or competition from elsewhere. A couple of seconds and I think we can close that poll. Okay, let's pop the results up on screen. All right, interesting. So we see actually the biggest problems that people are suggesting is finding those sales channels, getting that product out there in front of their customers. But there are some particular issues around developing the product, purchasing equipment, and marketing. It's actually a pretty even spread. Ayman, how does that? Oh, he's disappeared. Are you still there? How does that gel with your experience in Jordan of putting together the Jordan Bike Trail?
Of course, I'll share more about this now when I show the slide.
I'm just asking you very quickly.
This is actually a very good question because looking at the poll here, it's interesting actually for me to see this because when we first started operating and selling cycling tours, we thought that the main struggle was to basically to be able to find the right sales channels and try to basically approach the right partners and how can we get clients and international partners to sell our tours. But honestly, after working for many years in this field, we found that this wasn't actually the main struggle. It was the main struggle was how to be able to reach the level where international partners would find you. So and how to position yourself in a place where you're attractive to international companies and travelers to come find you. The cyclists in general and specialized cyclists like Lizzie, Saddle Skedaddle, they know how to find you. They would find you because they look at specialized tour companies. They look at companies who are publicly promoting what they're doing and their products, their safety standards, their high standards, all of that. Like you just need to work it from the bottom up, I would say. So you start basically training your team, building your capacity, expanding your knowledge, your local knowledge. And then, as we said earlier, you don't go technical immediately. You don't try to sell, for example, single track rides immediately, or to try and go very technical with your products. You start with the leisure tours, I would say, leisure cycling tours, fully supported. I wouldn't go for example, self-guided immediately. I would go for fully guided. It's important to know what you can offer and what's your capacity and what's your country's capacity as well. If your country is prepared.
All right. Hold that thought, Ayman, because I've actually got a question about that later on for you. Okay, now, so let's actually find out about Ayman and the Jordan Bike Trail. And actually, I'm going to pass you the screen over now, Ayman. There we go. You should have that now. Can you tell us about your experience of creating a cycling product from scratch and what goes into making it successful?
Of course, I would actually, I'm going to go through who we are and what we do briefly. Then I want to actually put more time and talking about the Jordan Bike Trail product and about the tools of how we navigated our way basically to be able to start offering cycling tours to international travelers and partners. In brief, I would say, or in a nutshell, we're an inbound tour company registered in Jordan. We started, I would say we've been in the market for almost 10 years now. Our company is specialized in soft adventures and experiential tourism. Soft adventures include hiking, trekking, and cycling. And the experiential and cultural tools, of course, covers all the main sites. Of course, no one will come to Jordan without visiting Petra, Jarash, Amman, and all of these sites. We add them, of course, to, I would say, all of our itineraries, but we don't try to highlight them as much as we highlight the experiential and cultural part and the soft adventures. So you don't see them listed here because we usually say that it's they're part of any tour by default, and everyone can do that. Every tour operator can do that. We try to include our own touch or twist to every tour that we offer. So every tour we offer includes at least a meal with the local family, some interaction with local communities, cooking experiences, spending a day with a shepherd. All of these experiences, we try to include them to our trips. When today we're mainly focusing on the cycling part. So I'm going to jump directly to developing the Jordan Bike Trail product. The Jordan Bike Trail product came to life, I would say, in 2014. As a company, we've helped creating and formalizing the Jordan Trail, which is our national hiking trail. Now it's very well known locally and internationally. It helped putting Jordan on the adventure map worldwide. It starts in the northern part of Jordan in Qais, near the Syrian border, and it ends all the way south in Aqaba by the Red Sea. So basically, the expertise and the knowledge that we gained during the development of the Jordan Trail massively helped us develop and come up with the Jordan Bike Trail product, basically, or project. It was developed over time, as I said. Initially, it started by our team in 2014. Then a few years later, we received a grant from the USAID. They helped us with this grant. They helped us upgrade the website. We already have the website ready, but they helped us upgrade the website, create videos, more content that helped us promoting the trail locally and internationally. And also, as part of the grant, we started training local suppliers along the trail. Local suppliers that existed already, who were supporting the travelers who hike along the Jordan hiking trail. And we also helped creating more suppliers along the trail. We also helped training more cycling guides and cycling mechanics in different villages and different communities along the trail. That was all part of the development that was done after we received the grant from the USAID in 2018. In a nutshell, the Jordan Bike Trail is a 730 kilometers trail that crosses the country from north to south, similar to the Jordan Trail. It intersects or it meets with the Jordan Trail at several points, but it's not the same trail. We actually designed it in a way that it goes through the same or most of the communities along the Jordan Trail, mainly to enrich the experience and to generate more traffic to the same suppliers who are based on the trail, basically. So both trails are complementing each other at this stage. Roughly 60% of the route is paved of the Jordan Bike Trail, and including most of the major climbs, I would say, because Jordan, as you know, the topography, we have lots of climbs. Cyclists always comment on this when they come to Jordan. So we design most of our trips avoiding and I would say, or playing around these climbs to make sure that we don't torture our riders. About the other 40% of the trail follows mainly dirt roads and old Bedouin roads. The trail, as I said, goes through most of the historical sites. We've designed it in a way that you can stop basically at one of the local suppliers or homestays along the trail and basically take a detour to visit some of the main sites. For example, you stop somewhere near Jarash to visit the Greco-Roman city of Jarash. Then you carry on, basically you go back to where you're staying at the homestay and you carry on with your bike ride. Of course, the idea of having a connected trail is very important, but we can't forget the amazing sites that we have. So we made sure that there are detours where you can visit some or most of the important sites while you're riding. As you see here, this is very technical. I'll just summarize it. The trail, we've organized the trail into 12 days, single day stages, basically. So we created the maps and everything based on riders who would like to do it self-supported or through a tour company, basically. So we've divided the trail into 12 stages, averaging, I would say, 61 kilometers every day. And about 1,600 meters of climbing per day. Each stage ends in a location with both food and water and accommodation, so you can easily bike the route self-contained without carrying any water, food, or camping gear. Of course, depends on you can always play around, I would say, with the planning, but we've designed it in a way that self-supported cyclists can do it, because the idea of the trail was to promote the culture of cycling and to promote cycling in Jordan, not just to attract cyclists to private businesses, including ourselves. Of course, by default, we get a share of that business or the riders who come to Jordan. But the idea was to develop self-supported bike trail that goes across the country and goes across through over, I would say, 65 villages at this stage. So it's a very important trail. Actually, in 2018, we won the Best of Adventure in the World award by the World Travel Market because of developing the Jordan Bike Trail as one of the best new trails that goes through local communities and support communities directly. Here, I'm going to jump directly to talk about some of the challenges and why did we actually develop the trail, and what are the main challenges we faced while developing the trail. I summarized the challenges and and why did we develop this trail in 3 points. I would say the first point was that we needed to create the demand. We knew that we want to sell cycling tours, but there was no demand. The demand was very limited in Jordan. Jordan wasn't known as a cycling destination. Only professional cyclists or experienced cyclists would consider coming to Jordan, especially when you know that the country doesn't have marked cycling trails. There is very limited content online about cycling in Jordan. It doesn't attract international riders and cyclists and international tour companies. So we said we will start by creating the demand, and that's actually where the idea of developing the trail came from. And also for us, of course, it's important if we want to offer cycling products, we need to find ways to sustain these cycling tours. So we had to think of how to create the demand and how to sustain the communities and the local suppliers that we're going to work with along the trail, who are playing a huge role, of course, in supporting our cycling and hiking tours as well. Of course, you can't work with local suppliers only during the high season or during the peak season. Then you leave them without any business during the low season. This way you lose them. When you go back next season, you want to use their services, they will move to another businesses, or they'll do something else, so you might not find them. So you need to generate traffic. As one tour company, we can't generate enough traffic for all the suppliers along the trail. So the developing the Jordan Bike Trail helped massively generating enough traffic for these local suppliers to maintain them and sustain them and generate enough income for them to stay basically throughout the whole year as local suppliers. I would say the other thing we worked on, or the other challenge, sorry, that we faced was promoting the trips and promoting the cycling tours for the international market, mainly as an inbound tour operator. We focused mainly on the international travelers when it comes to selling the tours. So we started looking at how can we sell the tours, and what are the right sales channels that we need to follow to find the international partners. And like the poll that you showed earlier, I see most tour operators struggle mainly with finding the right sales channels, and that was our main struggle, as I said. But after developing the trail, we found that the main struggle was how can we cope with or how can we upgrade our services and standards in a way that we can match the international standards and become more attractive to the international market. That was the first thing we started working on. So we started training our guides, we started investing in our equipment. In the beginning, we thought we can just outsource use bikes from here and there. We can hire random guides, we can put basically a tour together, rent trucks, rent vans. But of course it works, but it doesn't match the international standard. You can, as Lizzie said, the service, the standard need to be consistent, and to do that you need to have to be willing to invest in this product. So we started investing by buying new bikes, buying all the spare parts, the maintenance equipment, training our guides, training our local suppliers, investing in buying and designing trailers for our bikes, investing in designing our own storages where we can store the bikes in a way that is safe and allows us to maintain them in-house, basically. So we've done that investment as the first step, and we started also looking at the international standards in general. For example, we didn't know that it was important for many international companies that as a local tour operator, you need to change your bike every 2 or 3 years, all your bikes. So for us, like as a local operator, we thought, okay, we'll buy the bikes and keep them for a few years. Then basically, we never thought that we need to replace them. We thought maintenance would be enough. But apparently, for many international tour operators, the model of the bike matters, not just the maintenance and the quality of the bike. So all of these small details we had to learn throughout the process. The second thing we did was basically to try and understand more about the needs. We started talking to many international tour operators, the specialized ones who work in the cycling tourism industry. I would say we started asking them questions, attending travel shows. As Lizzie said, it was very important for us actually to become a member of the Adventure Travel Trade Association. That's where we met Saddle Skedaddle. Actually, here in Jordan, we hosted a fam trip. We met Andrew, the owner of Saddle Skedaddle. He was on one of our trips. We started communicating. We didn't actually operate cycling tours for them immediately. It took us 2 years or 3 years of staying in contact till we felt that we're ready, and they felt that we're ready to start operating their cycling tours. And when the demand was there also for them to start offering Jordan as a new destination. I would say also the last struggle, or the last challenge we faced with this product was to sustain it. How can we sustain this project, the Jordan Bike Trail? Usually, if you create a trail, like for example, the Jordan Bike Trail, there is an association that is solely focused on maintaining and updating and upgrading and developing the Jordan Trail. For the Jordan Bike Trail, it's a private project. We started with it. We wanted to find a way to maintain it, and after thinking deeply, I would say, and discussing with many different bodies and partners within the industry, we found that the best way to sustain it was to open it for public. So what we did is basically that we established some sort of a collaboration between different tour operators to basically to start promoting the trail, to publish their services and their contact information on the trail. So it generates more traffic, not just to us as a company, to all tour operators who are offering cycling tours and following, of course, certain standards that are safe, reliable, and professional to international partners. The other thing also is that we took, I think that was very important, that we, as part of our social responsibility and commitment towards adventure tourism in Jordan, we decided to integrate the costs of maintaining this trail as part of our company's expenses. So we're maintaining the website, scouting the trail, updating the maps, the information, adding new suppliers along and local communities who live and serve the travelers along the trail. We do all of that in-house now, so our team is helping with maintaining the project and maintaining the trail and updating all the data throughout the years. It's the good thing that we operate a lot of cycling tours, so during our cycling tours we always take notes for any changes we see on the trail, any new remarks that we need to add, any new suppliers that live on the trail and they're interested. We always get phone calls from different Bedouin communities and different villages. They say, we see lots of cyclists on the trail. They tell us that they are on something called the Jordan Bike Trail. Can you tell us what's that? How can we become part of it? So we ask them questions, we visit them, we see what can they offer, then we add them to the website so they can offer their services to the travelers. So the sustainability part was a very important part or a very important challenge that we had to overcome. As you see, this is just a screenshot for the website. It shows you that basically there are lots of information you can get as a single traveler, as a solo traveler. You can just go to the website, find all the information. You can see the link here. I recommend that you guys check it out. It's very interesting. It has all the maps, all the local suppliers, lots of information about the country, itinerary ideas. As you say, it explains a lot about the difficulty. For us, it's very important to communicate the information to travelers, especially solo travelers. They can't come to Jordan, download the maps and get lost in the desert, for example. We need to be very careful. There is a lot of responsibility here. We need to communicate the right information, keep updating the information. Sometimes we find that one of the trails that we mapped was blocked by there is a new paved road there, so there is a detour and it's not easy to go to follow the trail, or there is a new farm somewhere along the trail that's blocking the road. So we need to go immediately, try to find an alternative and update the trail. So, and we have an emergency phone number, which is our actually office number. If someone is just a solo rider riding along the trail and they have any questions or they need help even with communicating with the local suppliers who doesn't speak English, they can contact us and our office team will help them facilitate the conversation and help them sometimes book the services. We do all of that voluntary as part of our basically commitment to this trail and to the development of the cycling culture in Jordan. I'll just jump to here. So as you know, at the moment, the Jordan Bike Trail is now officially a private sector collaboration, as the website, as you saw, promotes affiliated local tour operators and bike shops equally. And now more inquiries are coming to all tour operators. We're seeing more tour operators are now invested in adding such products to their list of offerings, which is very important to Jordan and to all tour operators. I'm not going to take much longer. I'll leave some space for questions, but it's important to know that the Jordan Bike Trail has created new opportunities, not only for us as a company, but for the sector more widely, basically. I'll hand it hand things over to you, James, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ayman. That was fantastic. And judging by the amount of people who are very, very interested in getting your contact details and working with Experience Jordan, I think you've done quite well there. Okay. Actually, I've got a couple of quick questions just for you. Actually, you said you started the the Jordan Bike Trail in about 2014.
Yes.
How long did it take you until you kind of felt that this is a success, this has worked? You know, how long was that period from developing it from scratch up until it sort of felt like this was worthwhile doing?
That's an interesting question, actually. I think when we started adding more content online, and when we started seeing other people promoting the trail, that's where we felt that it's successful.
So how many years roughly are we talking about?
I would say 2017, 2019. So 3 years after,
Wow.
That's where we started hearing.
So 3 to 5 years to really see something grow. Yeah.
Yes, about the trail itself. For us as a company, I would say as soon as we developed the trail, we started actually receiving business, because we never stopped talking about it in travel shows, when we meet people about it. Our team, I had my business partner jumped on his bike, cycled the whole trail. We sent the team with them to give him support, just to promote for the trail. We had other team members helping with that. We go on the weekend just to check out the trail. So everyone is passionate about the trail project. And when we received the grant, I think the USAID believed a lot in the project, mainly because they found that it can complement the Jordan Trail, and it can generate more traffic to both trails. Sure. As they complement each other. We found that that support was very important for us at that stage, especially creating content. I find that as Lizzie, they request suppliers, local suppliers, to send them content. And if you as a tour operator or as a destination don't have enough content, they can't promote for you. You need photos, you need good quality photos, you need good quality videos that they can use to promote their tours to their partners. And that's something we've invested as a company.
Fantastic. Sorry, just one more very quick question before I invite everyone else back and we have the big discussion about e-bikes, because everyone's asking about them. You mentioned that you do self-guided tour. How do you make those profitable? How do those work for you as a company? It's just an interesting question to think about, because obviously with a guided tour, you're providing the guide, you're providing everything for people. If it's self-guided, how do you make that work from a commercial point of view?
Actually, a self-guided tour is not our focus at all. What we do is mainly fully guided trips.
Right.
But
okay.
how we actually handle some self-guided tours for some experienced cyclists who would approach us, knowing that we've developed the bike trail. So they would come to us. We know usually when we talk to cyclists, we understand immediately how experienced are they by the questions they ask. So sometimes we would have cyclists who are saying, can you help us with giving us just logistical support? We don't normally offer that, because most of our resources at the moment are directed toward B2B. So we mainly do white label cycling tours at the moment. We're not offering direct cycling tours, mainly because we're trying to focus on a certain, I would say, market and on a certain part of our, I would say, business. But every while and then we would handle a private tour, especially during the slow season or low season.
Okay, all right, fair enough. That's fair enough. Right, could I just invite Alison and Lizzie to pop back with us, if that's all right? Just because Ayman's been asked a lot of questions. He's probably going to be asked some more, because we've got some very specific questions about Jordan. All right, so a lot of people have been asking about e-bikes. So let's ask the question: are e-bikes the future? Are e-bikes a thing people should be investing in?
Yeah, well, certainly the trend. Well, certainly the trends that we're seeing are very much, growth in using e-bikes. In domestic markets for sort of local cycling and around, they're becoming incredibly popular in Europe. I think there's post-COVID, there's a great move towards wanting sustainable travel. People are sort of investing in e-bikes for themselves, so they can get to work, they can travel around more comfortably and see much more of their own domestic environment, and that then transfers to a desire to looking and thinking that you could do that on holiday. And I think that I'll sort of pass over to Lizzie and Ayman for their experience of that in terms of demand, and how they've dealt with that for their businesses. But it is definitely a growth market, in a lot of the European countries, and that is feeding through to holidays and what people expect from their cycling holidays.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Lizzie, what would you like to add to that? What do you feel about e-bikes?
Yeah, they're definitely growing in popularity. It's definitely a growth area. I think within certain categories of cycling, it means different things. So for us in the leisure and family cycling market, there's definitely a growth. Not so much in road. We don't have any electric bikes on our road holidays at the moment. Mountain biking, there is an e-biking presence, but it's it changes the experience, I think. So it's a different kind of product, the e-biking. They're not without their challenges. So I think if you're getting into cycling, I wouldn't necessarily recommend e-bikes as being your first kind of starter. There's a lot of
what makes you say that?
I mean, firstly, they're very expensive, so it's a very expensive fleet, and mechanically they're very complicated. So the maintenance can be a challenge. The parts can be a challenge. The complexities of having batteries, storing, transporting batteries, and yes, so yeah, really the mechanics. Then you can have technical issues that you can't fix on the road, so puts more of a reliance on spare bikes. And I think if you're getting into cycling, I would say to simplify things for yourselves, get some experience with a standard bike that you can get to know. You can get the mechanics are much more simple fixes.
I mean, I think that's really good advice. You know, at the end of the day, if you just like many of the people on here are just planning a kind of a product of some kind, you know, you need the logistics, as you said, in place to be able to deal with those kind of things. Ayman, someone's actually asked very specifically, are e-bikes available in Jordan? I'm aware you have an answer about this because we've already discussed it. But, you know, a lot of people are talking about the difficulties in importing stuff and those kind of issues. Perhaps just share very quickly with us your thoughts.
Yeah, of course, happy to answer. This is actually a very important topic to discuss. Like, we've been receiving tons of questions from international partners about e-bikes. And I have to mention first something or to stress on what Lizzie said. Like, if you want to sell cycling tours, don't start with e-bikes. That's a very important point to keep in mind. They're very there is a lot of maintenance involved, lots of information to learn beforehand, lots of preparation in-house before starting to start running e-bike tours. I would say in Jordan, e-bikes, they're treated like scooters and motorbikes at this stage. So we're allowed to import them, but by the time after you import them, you have to register them as scooters and get a plate and renew the license every year and all of that. So they're not really allowed, I would say, yet as normal. They're not treated as normal bikes. However, I'm representing at the moment. I'm representing JTAWA, the Jordan Inbound Tour Operator Association, and the newly established Adventure Committee at the Ministry of Tourism. And I'm lobbying basically to change the regulation of importing and dealing with e-bikes in Jordan. I think we've had actually a meeting recently with all official bodies, and they all agree that there is something that we need to work on, and we need to change the regulations. I think it's happening. It's going to take some time. As a tour company, we do have a couple of e-bikes. We brought them individually. If you import a bunch of bikes, it's very complicated.
It gets more difficult. Yeah.
We've managed to get some bikes. We don't have full e-bike tours yet, I would say, but we offer them as a supplement for our bike tours at this stage. So if you have a bike package, a cycling package, you can ask for an e-bike as a supplement.
Sure.
For you. Going back to why e-bikes are not, you shouldn't start with e-bike tours. As Lizzie mentioned, they're very expensive, first off. The second thing, you need to always offer the support when you offer e-bikes. So you need to have extra batteries, you need to have charging stations, you need to have your team trained on maintenance, you need to have in-house maintenance. you need to look at the capacity of your country. If you're the only one offering e-bike tours, that means no one is selling parts. No one would help you with maintenance. So you need to learn all of that before offering the e-bike tours. You can sell a package, a cycling package or an e-bike tour to travelers and leave them hanging somewhere during the
exactly.
tour.
And that's no good for anyone. So yeah, I think the takeaway is that e-bikes, there is potential there, but do your research, know what you're getting into, be prepared for all of those extra things that are involved in it, and also be aware of where you are. As Ayman said, if you're the only person operating that wherever you happen to be, it could be quite difficult for you to import or find the right parts and all of the things that you need. Actually, just on that,
sorry, just one more point to add. I think it's important to know also, or to learn from others' experiences when it comes to if you don't have cycling e-bikes in your country, look at your neighboring country, look at the other experiences, see what did they do to make it work. What we're doing here, we're looking at neighboring countries, we're looking at the regulations, what changes they did in order to make it allowed, I would say, because it wasn't allowed for many of them. And as you know, it's not allowed to travel with e-bikes because of the lithium battery mainly. So destinations need to invest in these bikes. It's actually an opportunity for destinations to invest in e-bikes, since transferring or traveling with e-bikes is not allowed in planes.
Sure. Okay, right. I've got a couple of quite quick questions, which we need to crack through fairly swiftly. These ones should be quite easy. A couple of people have asked, do you recommend any specific cycle brands for your fleets? Or is that such a big ballpark that it's difficult to say?
I would say that's a really tough one. There are certainly some good brands out there. One of the major issues at the moment is availability of bikes. There's not many bikes out there in the industry. If you're looking to buy
because they're all in Holland, that's why. The Dutch are buying them all, that's the problem. I blame Holland personally.
The last few years have caused some stresses on procuring bikes, so availability might be one of your questions.
Right, okay. All right, and as someone else has already just asked very quickly, are there any kind of sort of big international suppliers of things like tools and spare parts and stuff like that that are worth looking at?
Yeah, I would say for us in Jordan, I suggest to trying to find the local distributor first. They help usually more than it's better than trying to ship everything directly to your company. It's a win-to-win. You support your local distributor, and at the same time, they usually have good deals, basically importing these stuff. So you can talk to local bike shops, come up with a deal with them. Look at the spare parts prices as well. That's something we usually look at when deciding what bikes to buy. So of course, you need to look at the specifications of the bikes, but some bikes has certain parts that are super expensive. You need to import them separately. So talk to the bike shops, talk to the maintenance people, ask them about these specifications and how easy, how is it accessible to import this stuff? Is it easy? How long does it take?
Basically, do your research and go to the local experts, because those are the people who know. That's, I suppose, is what we're kind of saying. All right, one last question. Sorry.
The last advice is to buy the same kind of bikes. This way, you make sure you use the same spare parts, the same you learn the maintenance on one kind of bike. It's much easier long term. That's it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, one very last question, which came in from Mincha, and I believe maybe one of you will be able to tell me this. Is cycling really suitable for Himalayan mountain roads? Can you do tours in the Himalayas on bicycles? Now, I've seen people cycling to the top of the Pyrenees. People definitely cycle up over the Alps and other large mountain ranges. I know the Himalayas are on a very different scale. Are you aware, is it possible to do cycling in these kind of places? Or is it all about how you design the tour and the logistics and what's involved for people?
I'll let Lizzie. They operate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely possible, but the routes are there. But I think you just answered it. It's all about the logistics. So what are the distances between your accommodation stops? What are what's the food availability along the way? can you get a support vehicle? What kind of, I mean, yes, I mean, there's a lot of variability in what's a Himalayan road, you know, so are you talking,
True.
are you talking on the peaks? Because probably not, but,
No, but
you know, your roads, I would say absolutely, but it's the whole setup of the product. But
yeah, I mean, look, I think this is the end of the point, isn't it? The wonderful thing about cycling is one of those things, much like kind of trekking or hiking, that you can do in most places. It's all about how you design it, how you support it, and the kind of products that you offer, you know. And it's all about the kind of people that you're going to direct to. Going all the way back to the point Alison made at the very start. Certain people are going to want to do crazy things. Other people are not going to be into that kind of product. You have to design it and plan it around the time of year, as Ayman was talking about earlier, and you know, the logistics and everything.
And I think just one point to add to that, James, is you also have to communicate that well. You know, so if you've got your own website, you've got different tours, you know, you can find some great examples of different tour operators who grade their experiences. I know, you know, Lizzie does at Skedaddle, you know, so that you can grade them from 1 to 5, you know, give a description of what a grade 3 or a grade 5 challenge is, and make sure that's very clear on your website so people can understand that right from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly valid. I mean, at the end of the day, you can put a cycling tour anywhere, and actually we've just been confirmed by 2 people, Shanif and Jagan, who said, yes, there are indeed cycling tours in the Himalayas. In fact, one of them runs them. So well done, guys, fantastic. But what Alison said there is key. It's about giving people that confidence that what they're going to tackle is within their abilities. It's challenging enough to kind of make them excited about doing it, but to kind of grade it in a way so that they kind of understand what they're getting into and what they're buying, particularly if it's in terrain that's not usual for them. You know, if they're used to cycling around the streets of London or Paris or Amsterdam, going out into the desert in Jordan is a different proposition. You know, people need to be aware of what's coming up. Okay.
Sorry, just one more point. Like of course, but we all think about how to make a great trail, but it's important always to look at how can we make it safe as well. So I need to stress at this point, like for all tour operators, of course, you can always have a nice trail in mind. You can look at the map and come up with a very nice trail, nice stops, nice accommodation, all of that. But it's important to think how to make it very safe, especially as a tour operator. You need to think about your insurance. You need to think about how safe it is for the riders. How fast can you get them to a hospital if needed? How fast can you access the road by the trail by car? Where are the emergency access points? All of these things need to be identified as part of the solution.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, you know, you guys do thorough risk assessments of, you know, of everything. You and Lizzie both mentioned risk assessments and how you do those, so which is a key part. Now, we have to stop there because we're going to rapidly run out of time. It's been really good, and I actually have loads more questions I could ask you guys, but it doesn't matter. Alison, I'm just going to come to you very quickly. Could you just sum up a last couple of sort of final points for us, the sort of key important things you'd like our audience to take away from today, if you wouldn't mind?
Yes, I'll just run. I mean, we've talked a lot around this, and I will. Sorry, I just lost. Yeah, sorry. Let me just find my last slide. There you go. Yeah, we've talked.
Perfect.
There we go. Yeah, I think you can see it now. Yeah, we've talked a lot about these different points, but really just, and we will be sharing the slides with everybody afterwards. But just to really sum up the key points that I think, you know, we've touched on through the panel discussion and the questions. First of all, just understand what your market is and the different types of cyclists that you might be appealing to. As we pointed out, you know, the big ones to start with, the biggest markets and the easiest ones are the non-technical ones around tour cycling, family holidays. And I think Lizzie said very early on, you know, what is it that makes a great holiday, makes a great cycling holiday, great bike trail? So you've got to have a great product. Ayman's told us a lot about what that involves, the detail that's required to make a really good quality and consistent and reliable product, the trails and the training of your staff that go into that. The need for a partner to have real shared values, that, you know, if you're going to work with an outbound tour operator from Europe, you need to understand exactly what they want and what their clients want, and look at how you can develop your standards, the health and safety of the tours that you offer to meet those international standards. And part of that is having, very high quality, well-maintained bikes. I think Ayman's point that you have to change these every 2 years is quite key in thinking about how you're going to invest in creating these tours. But also then thinking about what's really special about your local environment, how you incorporate the local experiences and operate the whole tour in a very responsible way that those European cyclists are going to expect. And then I think Ayman said very early on, an inspiring story. What is it that makes your trail different? What it is about the local story that you've got, and then being able to share really good content, photos, images, those stories with your partner so that they can promote it effectively to those key audiences.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alison. I don't think we've got much to add to that. I think that certainly reinforced all of the points that we've kind of seen in the certainly in the presentations and in the questions we've had today. Now, that's just about all the content we've got. Just to wrap things up, I'm going to hand back over to Arthur at CBI, who wants to share some important links.
Hi, thanks, James. Yeah,
No
so we've almost reached the end of this webinar. And before I give James back the word one more time for closing the session, I'd like to take a minute to highlight our online platform. So CBI, we have over 40 studies in the tourism sector. You can visit www.cbi.eu/tourism and you can find all the research that we've done so far. As you can see in the short overview, we have studies on the sector. We have tips for example, for doing business or for finding buyers. And we have particular studies on specific niches. And just let me take a second to show you what it looks like exactly on our website. So you can either find our website via Google or you can type in directly cbi.eu. So on the homepage, you go to market information. You can see we have a lot of research also in other sectors, but of course we are interested in tourism. So this is the tourism homepage. I think it's important to mention that we have a monthly newsletter handy to subscribe to, because if you make use of the newsletter, you will get an highlight every month of new studies that are being published on the website. Then we have the niche markets. Of course, today's topic, cycling tourism. So let's have a look. Actually, we just yesterday published a second study on cycling tourism. So for our niche studies, we normally publish them in two parts. So we have the market potential part. You can see over here, all our studies have the same build-up. So if you're also interested in other niches, in nature tourism or adventure tourism, you will see that each study has exactly the same table of contents. And that allows for quick and easy browsing. For example, if I would like to know what are the top 6 markets for cycling tourism in Europe, and I just click it, and then I can read here, that's Germany, United Kingdom, Netherlands, Denmark, Belgium, and France. And then just to go back, just click my back button. If after reading a study, you still have any questions, you can always use the question button, and then your question will end up at the CBI team. You can also download research as a PDF, for example, to print it, to take it with you. If we look at all the topics covered today, I think you will find lots of links to the market study. For example, Lizzie has been talking about the channels, which you see in the entering the European market for cycling tourism under chapter 2. What are the channels? And lastly, referencing Ayman was giving a tip to learn also from competitor countries and from neighboring countries. And we also have a chapter on that, which is chapter 3. What competition will you face in the cycling tourism market? And there you see examples of competing countries. Jordan is also included. And a little bit below, you will also find examples of benchmark companies that are already advanced, where you can learn from. Taking it back for one last message to the PowerPoint. See if that works. Yeah, I guess so. So what I wanted to share with you, although it's very early at the least to say, but next year we will be present at ITB in Berlin So together with our German partners from the Import Promotion Desk, we will have a booth at ITB. And for everybody that's watching and that's thinking of attending ITB, we hope to see you there. And that leaves me to thank you all for participating in today's webinar. And on behalf of CBI, I would also like, of course, to thank very much our panel, Alison, Lizzie, and Ayman, for all the great insights. That's it for me. Back to you, James. James, you're still on mute.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, everyone, I really do recommend, please do go and visit the CBI website, cbi.eu. Please do look at all the studies. There's an absolute mine of information, tips, advice, all sorts of stuff in just about every niche of tourism you could possibly think of in there. So please do go and check it out. That's it for today. A quick reminder that a recording of today's session and all the slides will be provided to you all by email. As usual, there is going to be a really quick survey as the session closes, so you'll be asked just a couple of questions. If you have time, please do answer those because it's going to help us plan future sessions just like this one. And that just leaves me to thank everybody. I'd like to say a big thank you to our wonderful panel of experts today. So a big thank you to Alison, to Lizzie, and to Ayman for sharing their time and expertise. Thank you all. Lovely to have you today. I'd also like to say a big thank you to Arthur, to Yorith, and to the rest of the team behind the scenes at CBI for enabling today's webinar and helping us get this message out to you guys. And thank you to all of you for attending, participating, giving your time today. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. I hope you found it useful. And let me say, have an amazing day, everybody. And I'm sure we're going to see you again soon. Goodbye.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.